I've spent a while trying to figure out how to get the waves from the Prophet VS into the Super 6, and I finally managed to do it and realised I could refine the method to create wavetables from anything for anything. So to check, I took those individual samples and created wavetables for the Microfreak and the Waldorf M and Arturia Pigments. And it's a little fiddly, you have to make sure you don't make any mistakes. But if you're a patron, you can download the complete set of 2048 sample length individual samples, which means following this method you can convert them for whatever you've got, and I'll make the Super 6, the Waldorf M and the Microfreak ones available to purchase on my website. But if you don't want to buy them, just follow these steps. As I said, it was a bit fiddly, it took me quite a while and I made a few mistakes along the way, as you'll see in the video. So it's taken me a while to put them together and to get them sounding bang on. And if you listen to the little buzz in this 8-bit sign, these are the type of details you're looking for. Crispy, lo-fi loveliness. And the problem with doing anything like that is that, as we know, wavetable waves are a specific length. So they're just a single cycle sample of whatever sound they've used originally, but they've all got different lengths. So in the Super 6, it needs 4,096 samples. Other things need 2,048, other things need 1,024 or 512. So the difficulty you find is, how do you get that exact number of samples into your waves? So been playing around and I found a nice little way of doing it. It's free. You need a DAW and you need Audacity. But if we look at this here, I've got here in Pigments just 8 samples, the first 8 samples or the first 8 waves from the Prophet VS in the wavetable. And of course, if you take the morph off in Pigments, you can just hear the individual waves. As I say, the Super 6 needs 4,096 samples per wave. So what key on the keyboard is 4,096 samples? If I'm recording at 44.1 kilohertz, then that's 44,100 divided by 4,096, which gives us 10.766 hertz. So what key on the keyboard is 10.776 hertz? Well, we know A4, I think it is 440, so this is going to be 220, this is going to be 110. As we go down, we're going to get 55, then we're going to get 25.75, so it's going to be below an A down here, miles away from the bottom of the keyboard. And after a fair bit of experimentation, I found 10.77 hertz to be around F0, well, between F0 and E0, so somewhere, like I say, way down there. But precisely how much? Well, I found that if we knock the note down by 24 cents, we get exactly the right amount of samples. So taking a look at Pigments again and using a sawtooth and playing that sawtooth on an F and tuning it down here by 0.24. So I've bounced that down, and if we go from peak to peak, to make things simple here, I've used snap to zero crossings. We can see there 1,024. So that's 1,024. So I'd need to go 2 octaves below that to get the exact sample rate. 1 octave below be 2,048, and 2 octaves below be 4,096. So looking at this one, this is an octave lower, 2,048. And then I've played it an octave lower again to give me 4,096. Basically a 10 hertz LFO. And then just to see, I've put it an octave higher, 512. So just to reiterate, that's playing an F minus 24 cents. So coming back to the Prophet VS then, I go to the master tune. You can see I've already programmed it at minus 24. Maybe that's showing up on the camera, maybe not. So if I start playing, whoops, put it back at minus 24. So the idea here is that, get it to 24, come on, you can do it. 24. So I'm going to sample at an F at -24, and then I'm going to pitch it down 2 octaves. This keyboard won't play things that low, even if you transpose it down or you play it with another keyboard. I've tried that, and it just gets to a point where it just gives up. So play it on this F, sample it, and then reduce it by 2 octaves. So press record and go to the wave shapes. So here's those 8 wave shapes. That was a default patch, so we're not filtering anything or doing anything special with it. But if you did want to do something whereby you're playing with the filter, just press the key, tweak, press the key, tweak, or just do a continuous thing, and then split whatever you've got up into separate files. On this, I can just simply split this up like that. Okay. And now what I want to do is put these into a sampler. So I've done it before. You can see down here while I've been practicing what I'm going to demo, just to make sure I've got all the steps in place. So I'll take these, and in Logic, you can just drop them here and put them on a chromatic sampler. In other DAWs, there'll be different ways of doing that, and here they are. Let's just make them a bit louder, shall we? So we can see we've got the different wave shapes in there. So let's drop them down by 2 octaves, -24. And then there we go. So I'm just going to record that now. Bounce that down. So here's our 8 wave shapes. And again, I'm going to cut this into separate files. Then I'm going to save them as separate files. Export as audio files. Again, you'll be able to do this in different ways on different DAWs. Export. There we go. And actually, just to show, we'll just double check. Always worth double checking stuff like this, that we've actually got them at the right rate. So let's come to here and let's look at that. See if we get, whoops, 4096. There we go, 4094. That's pretty spot on, isn't it? So these waves are exactly the right tuning to chop up, cut a section out, and then use that as the raw file for your wavetable. So to do that, we'll go into Audacity. We'll load these waves. Here they all are. Actually, I've done these in stereo. Should really have put them into mono. Wonder if I can change them into mono in here. For the Super 6, I need to put them into mono, but actually I don't for Pigments. So maybe just stick with this for now. So let's delete the front bits off because you can see there's a sort of ramp up in volume. So we'll delete the front from all of them. So we'll go to there, select, tracks, in all tracks, delete. And now we just need to get them at 4096 samples. So if we look here, we've got how many samples are in that section. So if we go from the start to there, we've got 2061. We can just type in 4096. So that's a 4096 sample section. Split the clip. And there, we click on this alone, 4097. What's it done there? So let's get rid of one sample off the end of it. Another way to do this is just to pull in a file from whatever synth or whatever VST you're going to use. Just load it into here and it'll click into place. It's actually what I did with the Super 6 samples. There we go. 4096, it says down here at the bottom. If you really want to be super careful with this, if you zoom into the very, very start of the wave before you do the clipping and you find yourself a 0 crossover point, because sometimes you do get little artifacts if you've got a jump, but you shouldn't really be getting jumps and clicks, because if the samples are exactly the right length, which these were, well, they were 495, unless you do it in a really odd place where you're going to get a jump, you won't get any buzzes or clicks. Sometimes you can just hear a sort of odd little buzz on very low notes. And if you can, just go back, redo this, and zoom right in. And you'd click this one here, for example. So let's just do that here. We can see, if I zoom right into where it changes through 0, get rid of that section. and then pull this back out to 4096. Make sure it is 4096. There you go. So I'll just do these for the rest of them. Next thing we want to do is normalize everything. So effect, volume and compression, normalize. Okay. And this is quite neat on this. You can just click on it and press, well, on the Mac, it's Command and R, and it just repeats. Oops. Just repeats the effect you've last used. Okay, so we've got all our samples there. We just need to export them. We can export them all at once. Go into File, Export, Export Multiple, split files based on tracks, put numbering before the name. That'll just make things easier. And here I've been doing it for the Super 6. For the Super 6, you save them as raw, headerless files. Encoding is signed 16-bit PCM. Again, should be mono. And I've clicked here numbering before label or track name, and that's because of the way you import things into the Super 6. It just makes life easier for me, so export those. Okay. And here they are. Here are the new ones we've just created. They're called raw files. For the Super 6, they're actually in the right format. I just need to rename them. So, replace text, replace.raw with .ws6. But you probably haven't got a Super 6, and what's more interesting really is creating wavetables. So if we just cut and paste, the next one, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. So now we've got our wavetable. It's a 16-bit wavetable. The fact that you recorded it in 44.1, 48 or whatever doesn't matter at this point because we've just got a single cycle. If you were recording in 48, you just use a different note. So everything I've done there previously is based on 44.1. But anyway, this is your wavetable. So we need to export that as a single file. So export it as a WAV. New, call it new, Prophet VS 1 to 8. And that's it. So if we come back into Pigments now, and this works for anything, load a new one, got new Prophet 1 to 8, and there we've got them. So, and as I say, I've done these at 4096. If you're using another synth, you can just use whatever sample rate you need. But the important thing to know, the important thing to remember is the tuning. And that minus 24 cents at F0 or at F is the way to do it. To quickly demonstrate how important it is to get those crossover points right, the start, the end point, and the sample length. Perfect. Here's one I've created on the Super 6, or for the Super 6, transferred to the Microfreak and just messed up on the files. So they sound right. In fact, if you listen to the Prophet VS, you can hear lots of little aliasing bits going on in there. The Super 6 is a lot cleaner. But that's beside the point. Here's the Microfreak. There's a little buzz. And it's not there on the Super 6 or the V6, or the VS, sorry, if I come down another octave. As I say, you can hear these things much better in the lower ranges. VS and Super 6 are still sounding good. If we come down onto the Microfreak though, it's a completely different sound. It's got a little buzz to it, and that says to me there's a little spike in the waveform. And I'm playing this one across the top. I've created a single wavetable for the Microfreak using all these 16 waves, and I've imported it back in here just to see what's happening. And if we zoom in on this section down here, we can see the sample length of the sample 1, which we're playing there, is just out. We're getting a sudden drop and then increase because that'll come all the way from the bottom here, straight back up to there. And if we take a look at the oscilloscopes, pretty much a sine. Same again on the Super 6, but go over to the Microfreak and there's that little dink. So to combat that, when you click on your wave, have your selection here on the start and the length of the section. So it starts at 0. If you get a funny little dashed line, it means that you've placed it a little bit too early. So there'll be a gap and it won't sound right. So we're looking for 0, 0 for the first sample and then multiples of whatever the sample length is for the rest. Look at these then, 0, 0, 0, 2048, 0002048. We go to the next wave. It starts at 2048 and it's 2048 long. If we go along, all these start points should be multiples of 2048. 0, 2048, 4096, 6144, and you can see these are all adding up nicely now. And the way I've just checked everything is I've nerded out and made a little spreadsheet, and I've just put the start point. So 2048, next one, plus 2048, plus the next one, plus the next one. So I've got all the start points. So the final one should be 30720. So the final one, where are we? It starts at 30,720 and it's 2048 long, as are all the others now. So yeah, just important to get that right. And it can be a faff because I've had to come in and change all of these. And if I look at this one again here, it's out. And I figured out why. Number 12 is out, but I've not been back into these yet. If you look at the numbering, you can see it's 11, 12, 13, and then it goes back down to 1. So I've got to swap all these round because it imported them according to the numerical value. I've just got to move all these now around. Cut and paste, cut and paste. So I'm checking again when I'm moving them. That one's wrong, isn't it? Let's just get these bang on again. So creating the wavetables can be a bit fiddly, but it's worth it in the end. Check the end, 30,720. So now that final one's right. But when I was originally making these, I've somehow cut this sample here to be too short. So I've imported the original. And this is now quite a cool thing to show on this. If you sample everything at 4,096, like I said at the start, you can then use the same sample for your 2048s, like the Microfreak. All these are 2048. Or you can change it to 1024, 512, etc., 256. Using this little function, if we come up to effect and then we pitch and tempo, and we can change the speed of it. So if I speed it up double time, it will reduce from 4,096 samples to 2,048. So let's apply that. And there we go. Click on it. 2,048 samples. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to throw it in here. Check the timings again. 002048, 2048. We can see it's definitely longer than what we had originally. So now we've got these all perfect. We can export them. So I'll show you how to export as wavetables. Let's just get rid of these two because we don't need them anymore. That one and that one. And we can go to File, Export Multiple. Make sure no solos are lit there and everything's unmuted. We'll export these as WAVs. Throw them in there. Just start a new project just to double check what we've got. Here they are, all named slightly different things, but banks 1 to 8. Just drop them in. There we have them. Let's import these into the Microfreak then. We'll open MIDI Control Center and we'll import with these madly random named ones. Okay. And hopefully we should have a better sample selection in here. That was the original one with the funny little buzz. Let's go to wave number 9, Wavetable 9. There we go. So if we wanted to change these to be, I don't know, Waldorf M, for example, Waldorf M is 256. So we want to reduce these from 2048 down to 256 samples, which means doubling them to 1,000, doubling the speed again to 500, and doubling it again to 256. So, effect. So pitch and tempo, change speed. So let's apply that. So how long is that? That's 4,096 for the whole thing. Shows how grungy those Waldorf wavetables are. To do it to all then, I can do Control R or can undo that and just select all and do it to all. There we go. And I want to export these as 8-bit. So File, Export, Export Multiple, 8-bit. I've no idea if this is going to work yet. I'll have a little play with it in a bit. Here they are. I better go in and rename them, otherwise I'll have no idea what I'm doing. But I'll have a play with these and see if they work. And on the subject of 8-bit and grunginess, I think the original files must have been 8-bit because I've saved them here. On the left-hand side, these have been saved as 8-bit files from Logic. And on the right-hand side here, we've got the 16-bit files from Logic, and they sound identical and they look identical. So I spent ages trying to make an 8-bit grungy sounding file. But listen to that. We've already got one, so don't waste your time trying to create 8-bit files like I did, because they are already. So here they are all loaded. I'll play another little sine or sine-like wave on the VS. That's wave 96. It's got a little bit more of a harmonic in it, very, very slight. And you can still hear it on the Super 6. These are the ones that I really did check over, because if there's something slightly wrong, if you've recorded it not quite right, you do hear those little buzzers. And you do notice that the Microfreak isn't quite as bright as the other instruments. They do sound nice, don't they? I love those little buzzy bits. Let's try another wave. Let's just go to the next one along. So that's working. On the Microfreak though, because it interpolates between the waves and it goes from 0 to 100, when you've got 16 waves in there, every wave is about 6.25 or something on it. So to try and find the individual waves can be a bit tricky. About there maybe. Yeah, not bad, but you get the idea. It has worked. Waves 0 to 31 in the Prophet VS are the user waves. I've included all those. So on the Super 6, for example, you've got to load it as 8 separate banks, and you can only put 2 banks at once in here. At the minute, I've got bank, I think it's, well, waves 32 to 43 and waves 96 to 100 and 112, 111. And by the way, at the very end, the very last couple of waves, they've got a blank one on the Prophet VS, and that's so that you can turn the sound off. You can use the vector to take it to 0, and you've got noise. The noise didn't sample very well, so ignored those two, but stuck in a square, I think it is, in a triangle from the Prodigy, just to keep it at 128. But yeah. On the M, each wavetable will take 64 waves, so there's 2 wavetables in here. So this should be wave 33. Difficult doing it with a slider. And then should have that easily go down to wavetable 1. I listen to something a bit more harmonic. Number 9. So on this it's number 8, because it starts at 0. And on this it's number 41. When you double checking these things, it gets confusing. And number 8 on this will be about halfway, so it'll be about 50. So I've got to zoom up to 50-ish, see what we get. So that's it, isn't it? So yeah, there you go, it worked. It's a nice little method. You can use it for pretty much anything. You've just got to make sure that you know what sort of format you've got to have it in for what synth or for what soft synth. The M was a bit of a nightmare for me, to be honest. I couldn't do the 8-bit, and then I tried the 16-bit, and it needed an updating from 1.08 to 1.09 because it was getting funny buzzers on the first. I thought it was something I'd done, but actually the synth itself was introducing those buzzers, which was infuriating. That was a day wasted, but those sort of things are going to happen. But at least, you know, it's a free way of doing it for anything. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please do think about subscribing, ring the bell. Join me over on Patreon if you want those 2048 waves. So there's 2048 samples, there's 128 of them, so you can do what you want with them if you're a patron. If you want the Super 6, the Waldorf M or the microwave, I will sell those because I've spent days and days doing this, so I can't just give everything away for free because a fair amount of effort has gone into this. So yeah, do check out my Patreon. There's loads of bits and bobs on there. Check out my starskycard.com website. There's loads of free bits on there, and there's nice patches and stuff on that as well for free stuff and stuff you can buy, obviously. Thanks for watching. Hope that was really useful. I found it really interesting, actually. I've been dying to do stuff like this for ages. So I will see you next time.